Hey guys, welcome back, and today we have another week of box office, so let's get into it. Make sure to like, sub, you can comment if you want, and make sure to follow me on Instagram. There it is. And Juliet played to 99% last week, and 1,007,428, and 96% this week, and 936K, so it's doing just fine. And then we got Boop the Musical. Now, Boop obviously opened, and it got pretty solid critic responses. It wasn't overwhelmingly negative like people thought. It also wasn't acclaimed, and I feel like it needs that, and the sales of the show definitely show that. This week, last week, 91% and 543K. This week, 93% and 398K. I mean, that's bad. Now, I know it opened. It only had 7 performances. The average ticket was only $53. But again, this is not good for a show of Boop's size. It's not. It's plain and simple economics. Now, I know preview prices are cheaper. We all know this. They have a strategy. It's going to be even more comped because it was opening week, but these numbers are not good, guys. They're not good numbers. There's no ifs or buts or whens. They're not good numbers, and I genuinely am curious about what Boop's team is, what's their end goal, because I can only imagine that they are not happy with these numbers. I don't know what investor would be. You know what I mean? Like, there's no person on planet Earth that would be an investor, even a common folk person like me and you, who would invest in a show like Boop that costs, millions to put on, probably has a weekly nut of 800, 900,000, and expect to be happy with 389K or whatever it was, 398K. There's just no way. So it has been getting good word of mouth, and it has decent critic responses, so it could boost at the box office. I think next week is going to be the real test. Next week, it has 8 performances, no preview prices. I don't see it going to like 700 or 800K. I mean, if I'm being honest, it needs to have a 7 in front of it next week in order for me to be confident in it. I think it will hit more like a 6 or a 7, or 6 or a 5. That's because that's kind of what it was doing before this week or last week. But yeah, Boop needs to make up ground, and they have like this little time to do it. And I feel like, this season is semi-competitive, and like we think Dead Outlaw, maybe Happy Ending, Vista Social Club, maybe Operation Mincemeat, like everyone's thinking that's the best musical nominees. And I don't know if Boop has that potential, and if it doesn't get a best musical nom, I don't see it surviving past the summer. I also think that while Boop is an intellectual property, it's not a popular property. Kids are not like, ooh, let's go see Boop. They're going to want to see Aladdin. They're going to want to see The Lion King, not Boop, because it is a family show, but that family audience is this isn't going to be their first pick, plain and simple. And it doesn't, I think, have the oomph to get that audience to come like this. And big shows like this cannot lose money for long. Like, if this was, maybe Happy Ending, which even then was, like, failing, or even something like a Kimbo, they could make up for it. They would have time. But Boop doesn't have much time left in its arsenal. And again, I'm not hating on the show. I'm going to see it. I'm going to review it. I actually like the song that they put out, Where I Want to Be. I'm just stating from a financial standpoint, objectively, the show is not selling well, and this has to be concerning if you're an investor. And that's just the plain truth. Plain and simple, Boop is on thin ice, and if they can't recover next week, I don't think they will recover. And again, a lot of, smaller shows like maybe Happy Ending have recovered. Beetlejuice has been a big show, but that doesn't happen a lot. And I certainly don't know if that's going to happen 2 times in one season. And Boop, again, is a much more costly production. Vista Social Club did pretty solid, 97% last week and 970K. This week, 92% and 960K. Cabaret, the Kit Kat Club with Eva Noblezada and Orville Peck, played to 99% last week and 1,521,936, and 87% and 1,023,541. Now, that's actually pretty similar to what Adam and Avela, the Moana star, that's very similar to how they started out. But again, we'll see. I know that Evelyn Noblezada is a name, but how much of a name is she? I personally feel like, the reason why Gatsby was successful wasn't just because of Eva and Jeremy. They were a part of it, but they were not the main reason. You know, like Hugh Jackman and Son Foster are the reason why Music Man sold so well. Whereas I feel like Eva and Jeremy were accessories, but important accessories nonetheless. And when we get to Floyd Collins, it seems like these two have power in terms of financial power, but they're not a Hugh Jackman level. And not many people are, and I would say they're not even like a Ben Platt level yet. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see from their standpoint how they perform, because if I'm Eva Nolazada's agent, I'm Jeremy's agent, we need these shows to sell well so that we can get our talent into big productions and have that star name. Because it seems like they had that star name with Great Gatsby, but it seems like with these two productions, Cabaret and Floyd Collins, that they're not maybe selling the way that they were thinking. But again, hey, Cabaret's still making $1 million, so they're doing something right. Death becomes her 94% last week, and 1,208,719 to 92%, and 1,086,788. One of its lower weeks, but it's still doing pretty good. Floyd Collins, 100% last week, and 350K to 80% capacity this week, and 509K for 7 performances. Average ticket $85. Now, I want to preface this by saying that Floyd Collins is not a very commercial show. It's a very specific show that appeals to a specific audience. So it makes sense that it wasn't gonna do as well. But you know, Jeremy, you know, I think as a star potential, you know, I'm gonna be a little disappointed because you know 509K isn't great. It's starting off point. You know, it's $1 million. So I mean, it's doing better than Boop. And again, the average ticket is lower, and it is a limited engagement. But I feel like, you know, if I'm Jeremy's agent, and if I'm Jeremy, this is important because, you know, one of the selling points of this revival is, in my opinion, Jeremy Jordan. And if it can't get to at least 700K, 800K consistently, I think it's going to be a bit of a detriment on Jeremy's career. Not that he's not going to get hired, he just might not be considered the box office draw that Great Gatsby set him up to be in, and I maybe would have picked a more mainstream production or musical to come into so that that illusion could potentially stay there. But again, it's early on, so we don't know yet. And again, Floyd Collins is never going to be $1 million musical every single week unless you had like Hugh Jackman, and even then I don't know, because it's not for everybody, but it could be doing a lot worse. And again, it's a limited engagement, so it's only playing until June. So does it really matter, you know? Gypsy, Audra was out, so it slipped significantly from 85% and 1,386,477 to 71% and 1,161,929. Hadestown fell pretty significantly from 100% to 98% and 934K to 804K. Hamilton continues to make, you know, $1 million plus. Hell's Kitchen fell under $1 million, going from 87% to 77%, and 1,141,243 to 951K. Which again, I think is, listen, Hell's Kitchen is going to be here for a minute. It has made so much money, you know, up front, but it definitely is proving to be a bit of a front-loaded show, and I don't think the show is genuinely that good, and I think people are seeing that, which is why maybe it's not getting the numbers it was in the beginning. But again, it in the summer, tourists, it's going to be fine. And as long as it has a 9 in front of it, it's fine. Just in Time was this proves that Jonathan Groff is a star. You know, everyone's like, who is the draw at Merrily? Obviously Daniel is the main one, but is Jonathan Groff a draw? And this proves it. You know, obviously it's based on Bobby Darin, so it has that going for it. But it's not like the title is like Bobby Darin the Musical. And for 7 performances, it sold out and played to 901K with an average ticket of almost $200, $191. and a top ticket of $474. And this production didn't have it easy, you know, canceled its opening night to later rescheduled its first preview. But reports about the show are coming out to be pretty positive. And how would it do without Jonathan Groff in it? Maybe it definitely wouldn't have done this good. Because a lot of people are like, I'm going because of Jonathan, but I think this definitely establishes yet another key player that investors can say can sell a product. Like, I think if Jonathan Groff was in Floyd Collins, it would be doing a lot better. Maybe not 900K, but way better. And maybe Jeremy Jordan would have brought in similar numbers had he been in Just in Time. But again, it's Jonathan Groff has proved he is a star. And I guess Eva and Jeremy have kind of shown, at least in the beginning, it could change as they go on, that they're maybe not at that level yet. Maybe Happy Ending continues to do amazing. 96% for both weeks. 748K last week to 910K, and that's because Darren was back in. Although again, last week was still a pretty solid week for Maybe Happy Ending. Moulin Rouge did 95% last week, 1,190,352 to this week's 88%, and 1,055,306. Mincemeat went from 99% to 97% this week, and 843K last week to 773K this week. Pirates, the musical, a revival, sold out for 3 performances, average ticket of 102, and a gross of 222K. Although I think it's a limited engagement, but yeah, that's not great numbers though. Like that's not good, especially for a $100 ticket. And then we have Real Women Have Curves, which didn't start off super well. 77% capacity, average ticket of $56, and 371K at the box office. This is definitely a show that people aren't looking forward to, but people have come out saying, oh, this is really good. I think it might be the show that gets left out. There's always a show this season, even if people like it, that gets left out, and I just feel like that has this vibe to it. I don't think I'll have the chance to see it. If it gets nominated for Best Musical, I will see it, but it's not on my checklist, to-do list, because this economy. If anyone has a free ticket, I'll take it. But anyways, I think this has to build up momentum rather quickly. It's not costing as much as a Boop, but starting off this significantly weak is not a good sign. And again, a lot of shows don't turn it around. And we'll see. We'll see. It's too early to tell, but it's not selling great. And I just don't know if it has that oomph to stand out. You know, it is based off of a popular film, but compared to the other star-studded events and concepts, this seems a little bit like we've seen it before, because there's a lot of In the Heights into it. And if I'm being honest, the promo material has kind of disinterested me. And I personally feel like a lot of people will be like, this sounds generic. Again, I'm not hating on it. I'm just being objective and saying that this isn't a good start for me, for this show, even though and at least the capacity could have been higher. You know what I mean? Like, let's say they had 90% capacity. I'd be like, well, they have that on their side. But they don't even have that on their side. And yeah, it has that vibe of a show that's gonna not gain the momentum that it needs to. And again, there's just so many shows that some shows just get left out in the dust. And I don't know, I personally feel like the concept of it is not intriguing enough, or marketing-wise, they're not really doing anything to make it stand out. And we got Redwood, which had a pretty bad week, going from 89% to 79%, and 856K to 730K. Close this when Adina leaves. I think they will. 6 is doing fine. Smash, 87% last week to 89% this week, and 965K last week to 892K this week. Hate on the show all you want, but it's doing very good, and we'll see what happens when it gets critic responses and after previews. And then we got Stranger Things: The First Shadow, which did a lot worse than I thought. You know, it had 4 performances, so I have to take that into account. The average ticket was $110. But they went from 100% to 96%, and they only made 676K this week compared to last week's 433K. I feel like I don't know. I feel like I'd be slightly disappointed if I was a Stranger Things investor. I feel like it's one of the most popular Netflix shows. I think the expectation is this was gonna have an 8 or 9 in front of it, not a 6. So again, I think it will improve. I think it will be here for years and make $1 million. It's just having a bit of a weak start off point. But I think the 3 kind of reasons why maybe it's not performing as well is because I think there's been this general thought going around that you don't need to see this show, like it's not important, and it kind of is. 2, I don't know if a lot of Stranger Things fans know that it exists. There's like a lot of people being like, I didn't know this existed. Netflix definitely could be advertising this a lot more on their platforms. And I think a lot of Stranger Things fans come from foreign countries. They don't have the money to go to see shows. And, you know, Stranger Things isn't going to be, I don't think is the most popular with like 50 and 60-year-olds, and that's who sees shows and majority, and who plays majority. So again, and there was a lot of young people in our audience in Stranger Things when I saw it. It has a spectacle, so I think the tourists, so it's going to be fine. But it's a little concerning. I also think that all these IP productions have had years pass since they finished, quote unquote, even though some of them have continued, whereas Stranger Things hasn't even finished yet. You know, the final season hasn't come up yet. So you did this 10 years after season 5 comes out. There's that nostalgia factor, which I think is vital to why these IP properties are so successful. And Stranger Things, I think, was lacking that because it's still going on. And I also think that it has a little bit of a limited audience because it is the first IP production that is based off of a TV show. So it's not like you see one movie and you can kind of get it, or you can see a summary. It's like there's 5 seasons to get through, whatever it is, 4 seasons. And that might just be a lot to ask of people, especially those who haven't seen it yet, because you kind of have to watch the TV show to understand what happened, and you kind of have to watch all of the seasons, and that's asking a lot of the audience. So I feel like that's the reason why I think this is starting off slow, but I think it will pick up steam. Sunset Boulevard, 82% last week to 78% this week, and 1,097,900 to 1,012,546. Again, it's a limited engagement. It was more front-loaded than maybe people were expecting. It's still doing decent though. Great Gatsby, 98% last week, and 1,214,361 to this week's 93% and 1,069,646. The last 5 years went from 99% to this week's 97%, and 841K to 714K. Now it had a lower ticket price because it just opened, so it will probably go up. And again, limited engagement, but it got panned by critics, and a lot of audiences don't love it. So I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't get to $1 million. It doesn't do the business that the producers think it's gonna do. It could fall to a 6. That would be very embarrassing. So we'll have to see. Again, next week will be the big test. But even with 714K, it's not doing horrible. But I think they probably would have liked it if it just stayed with an 8 in front of it. You know, maybe 800K, because it was always gonna fall because they had comp tickets. And then The Outsiders sold out, and 1,459,996 last week to this week's 1,350,836. Those are the grosses for this week's box office. Some very intriguing things that are coming up, and I'm very interested to see what goes on. It's getting interesting, guys. So let me know what you think. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.